MicroLive.
Hello, tinsel lovers everywhere, and welcome to the MicroLive Christmas show. Not, as you may have just heard, the last of the series, but just the last before our Christmas break. Later on, Santa Cole, hello there John, will be suggesting good presents for computer buffs.
We've got the results of the MicroLive and Listener magazine data encryption competition.
And I'll be talking to Daily Mail journalist Anne Leslie about the wonder of the word processor.
You may remember that 4 weeks ago on the programme we were discussing the new amendment to the Copyright Act that's intended to clarify the law regarding the copying of software, and we invited letters on the subject. Many of our younger correspondents felt that just the price of game software led to the law being flouted. But young children who are caught copying software are risking more than they think. Not only would their parents be liable to pay any fines, but as barrister Emlyn Williams points out,
the penalties now available against them seem to be excessive, for there can, and indeed will, be cases where copying in contravention of the new provision may ground an order putting a child into the care of a local authority.
There were complaints too about some of the methods the companies use to protect their software. Firebird's Elite, for example, uses a system called Lenslok. When you buy the game, you get this plastic lens. Every time you run it, the program generates a pair of random numbers that appear jumbled on the screen. The lens lets you read them, type them in, and then the game runs. But Gary Nicklin of Essex isn't impressed.
Elite is probably the best game I've got at the moment for the Spectrum, but my enjoyment is totally spoiled by the fact that I have to pray for a Lenslok number that is recognisable through the lens. Several times now I have been unable to recognise any of the codes, and this means loading in the whole game again, and it takes ages.
Strong feelings were also aroused by the difficulty of transferring cassette-based software to disk. Dave Keane of London writes,
there must be many, like myself, who simply refuse to buy software on tape if it is likely to be too well protected to be transferred onto disk. Why, oh why, do companies not make at least all their new software available on disk?
A good point, Mr. Keane, and thanks to all of those who wrote in. Now here's Leslie.
A word processor, well, I think so anyway, is the most useful piece of software that you can use on a micro. To be honest, it was the only reason I allowed a computer across the threshold in the first place. It was great for writing scripts, especially for someone like me who is very indecisive and a total non-typist. But I would have thought that a word processor would be essential for someone who writes full-time for a living, like journalist Anne Leslie. Anne, you've been writing for the Daily Mail and for different publications throughout your career. But when did you first use a word processor?
Well, about 18 months ago. I'm tremendously perfectionist about my copy. I like to give in neat copy, not full of deletions and insertions and things like that. And I'd heard this wild rumour that there was a magical machine that did all this sort of thing for you, called a word processor. But knowing nothing about computers or word processors, I then set out to teach myself, and it was a pretty murderous lesson, I must say, to begin with. But then suddenly, breakthrough, and I'm now a born-again computer freak, boring my friends about how it's changed my life.
Well, you've ended up with a BBC B and a Tandy for when you're out on the road. How on earth did you decide what system, what machines you wanted?
Well, I made a list of what I wanted from a word processor. I obviously didn't want to send 400 form letters to earth-moving equipment manufacturers. And I think the best way of telling you what I wanted is what I got, which is this. Now, I happen to have in here a bit of a file of a story I sent from the Geneva Summit. Now, for example, say I didn't like paragraph 2. I thought really it belongs somewhere else. So here we go, and you will note that I'm not the greatest typist in the world, but it doesn't terribly matter when you've got a word processor. Now I'm going to move it and make it number 1. No, don't like it there, so I'll change it. In fact, I hate that sentence altogether. I shall now delete it. You see? Wonderful.
But you're experimenting, aren't you? Completely.
Well, you can try out ideas. You can try out various things that you want to, which you wouldn't do if you were going to have to type the whole thing again. Yeah. The other thing that's terribly important for a journalist is to know how many words you've been dribbling on for. So this is what happens. You go like that, count. That happens to be 218 words, which is wonderful. And then also what tends to happen sometimes is you've had a brainstorm and you have misnamed people throughout the piece. And if it's something like 5,000 words to retype with a deadline, you are hysterical. Now, I happen to know in this piece the words Kennedy and Khrushchev come in. So let's say that I made a mistake. The names of those two superpower leaders were quite different. So change Kennedy, should we say Fred? And what about Khrushchev? Change Khrushchev to say Leslie.
You're changing history here, aren't you?
I know. Gives a great sense of power. Now, let's see if the lovely computer... Right. Fred disliked Khrushchev's... Oh, sorry, it hasn't done it because I have not typed it right.
But
it doesn't matter because you do it again and
no,
it's all
there's no such thing as a
I
mistake,
haven't
really.
retyped for 5,000 words.
No, that's right. It takes the drudgery out of writing.
Yes,
and presumably
it does.
when you are a professional writer, there's a lot of drudgery involved.
Absolutely. And it really makes a difference with deadlines, too, because when I'm using my little tandy on the road, I can put the stuff down onto the acoustic coupler, right into the office computer, while my colleagues are running around queuing at the telex. I'm down in the bar. I've already finished my work.
Yeah. Going back to the drudgery point a minute, presumably you've got plenty more time to do other things now.
Just earn more money by doing more. No, and the great thing is that it will go on working for you at midnight. And
so you work at home a lot, presumably?
Yeah, I work at home. It doesn't want coffee. It doesn't tell you it's love life. It's a marvellous slave.
You seem to have got a sort of tailor-made system here for yourself as well. That interests me. You're not just using View as it stands. I mean, you've got green screen.
No, on each disc, I mean, this is the format for the Daily Mail, which gives the page length and the headers, which means that you'll say Geneva at the top, page 1, Anne Leslie. At the bottom, it'll say page so-and-so, and more following. That's all automatically done for me. And all I have to do is what they call boot the disc in, and it's all sitting there ready for me to go.
Do you think you have an advantage now over your colleagues?
Oh, yes, they're all terribly jealous. At least they say they're not jealous. They see me playing around on my computer, and they come round and they sneer at me. They say, oh, it's ridiculous, it's just showing off and everything. And then they go away, and I know that, in fact, they're groupies because they ring me. In fact, the ones who sneer most ring me about a week later and say, Anne, I wonder, could you spare a moment just to show me that thing again? And I know they go out and buy it. Changing their lives as well.
Would you call it a good investment? I mean, you've got quite a fair amount of expensive equipment here.
Well, I think actually probably the equipment that I bought paid for itself in 2 months. I simply could get more work done and enjoy my family as well. And the calluses on my fingers from typing are going.
And the fingernails are growing.
And the fingernails are growing.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for joining us, Anne.
you.
Thanks for bringing your enthusiasm. And thanks very much for allowing Fred and I, well, I think it was just Fred, actually, that fleeting moment of international power.
I think the computer objected to you being in charge of superpowers.
Back in October, the Listener magazine launched 2 competitions to test your skills as code crackers with 2 pieces of encrypted data. The challenges were set by John Clifford of Datasoft and Dick Gilbert from the Listener. The first challenge used some simple encryption techniques we covered earlier in the series. John, how would you set about solving this problem?
Well, we only use techniques as you described in the earlier program. We do have a graphic to try and make things clearer.
That was as it was published in the Listener.
That's right. Now, let's remove the spaces. That's always a good step. Looking at the text now, we now substitute the most commonly occurring letter within that text for the letter E, the most commonly occurring letter in English. And we will do that throughout the entire text, shifting each character.
Keeping the alphabet in the same order as it was before.
Right. Now,
it still looks a mess, though, doesn't it?
Yes,
Quite
but
jumpy.
the number of letters in there and their frequency is beginning to look more like English. Now, if you look at the first 7 letters, you may notice that that's give, the, backwards. So let's reverse that, do the same to the second block. That's looking fine, so we'll do that to the rest of the text. Now, as you can see, that already makes sense, so let's just put the spaces back in to give the final result.
And there's the question. Give the nickname of the Apollo 11 excursion module used by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin during their first manned lunar landing. And of course the answer was Eagle Dick. Did anybody get it?
Yes, many. We had over 100 entries which were correct with Eagle. Therefore we had to bring in a tiebreaker, and for that we wanted the competitors who'd solved the first part to write a telegram in 24 words using every letter of the alphabet in the correct order, bar 2, from or to somebody with a hatred of or a love of computers. And the answer, which we judged to be the winner, came from Mr. C. Banfield of London E7, who sent this telegram to William Shakespeare. Absent Bill, could discs encompass Falstaff's girth, Hamlet's indecision, jealous King Lear? Machines now offering playwrights quills, reasonable scribes, though unimpressive verse writers. Yorick.
Brilliant. Maybe Shakespeare would actually use a word processor. Well, Mr. Banfield wins an Amstrad word processing system for his achievement. The second competition wasn't so easy, though. We used Datasoft's professional encryption package to encode a secret message. The result was this jumble of numbers, which the listener had been printing since October. And Datasoft was so confident that no one would crack it that they got together prizes worth around £8,000. John, how was this one encoded?
Again, using a similar system to that we've already seen, except this time we do not substitute the same character for its equivalent throughout the entire text. In the first case, an E may be a V. The second time an E's occurred, it may represent a P.
So every time it's completely different. That sounds very complicated. Dick, did anybody solve it?
No, we had a few dozen entries, brave people, I must say. We had some wonderful answers. One was Dorothy, another one was Babbage, one was the cat sat on the mat, and one said November for some reason, but I'm afraid none of them was the right answer.
Were they just guessing, or had they got some theory?
Well, no, one or two people actually had on the back of their entries complicated lists of numbers in which they saw some remarkable pattern to produce the answer they gave, but they were all wrong.
John, would you like to decode it for us?
Yes. Okay, we already have the software loaded. To de-encrypt, we press return. The translation's already been done. Now we can look at the plain text within the inbuilt text editor of DataTalk, like so. We'll just pull up the main window so we can see the entire text.
And there's
the
message.
question.
The town of Yeovil in Somerset is home of a famous flying machine manufacturer. What particular type of aircraft is made in this town? And the answer, of course, is helicopter, and no one got that. Did you believe anybody would get it?
We always felt it extremely unlikely. We didn't believe that anybody would have the resources and the machine time to put this type of encryption system under sufficient analysis.
Is it uncrackable, your code?
No in-cipher system is uncrackable as far as we know.
None at all. Oh, so clearly commercial encryption software isn't absolutely secure, but it's good enough to deter most hackers who don't have access to very large computers, and probably for a long time. Since no one cracked the challenge, most of the major prizes are going to be given to a charity run by the National Bureau of Handicapped Students. John and Dick, thank you very much.
Micronet 800, the Prestel-based magazine, says Acorn is to launch a new BBC microcomputer in January. Micronet claims to have been given the machine's details by an anonymous software writer who has seen and used the new micro. According to the report, the machine will use 8-bit technology, can house up to 1 megabyte of memory, will cost around £700 and will be compatible with existing 128K BBC Model B software. A spokesman for Acorn says, "We are gearing up for a major launch in January with the BBC, but I cannot give you any details before the launch." And BBC Enterprises, who license Acorn to manufacture BBC microcomputers, say they cannot comment on any machines which may or may not be in development. Meanwhile, Micronet 800 say they are confident the facts in their story are correct. High street shops report brisk business in software, but sluggish sales of home computers. Many computer companies are depending on good sales this year to ensure continued trading next. Owners of the new Amstrad word processor, the PCW8256, are discovering a shortage of the unusual disks used in the machine, with some high street shops out of stock. The £400 word processor uses 3-inch disks rather than the far more common 5¼ and 3½-inch formats. The problem is that 3-inch disks are only made by two companies, Maxell and Panasonic. Maxell say new supplies have been ordered from Japan and stocks are expected to be in the shops by Christmas. In America, a Christmas price war is underway with computer dealers cutting prices in an attempt to clear stocks. With the details, Wendy Woods reports from Silicon Valley.
Even though there are signs that the computer industry is emerging from its doldrums, Christmas 1985 is a picture of bulging warehouses of unsold goods and dramatic price slashing designed to get shoppers in the computer buying mood. Meanwhile, the holiday tradition of $500,000 staff parties is nowhere to be seen this year in Silicon Valley. Most computer company employees will get low-cost snacks, even potluck victuals, for the first time in a long time. But few are complaining. Their Christmas cheer is that they survived 1985 alive. Reporting from Silicon Valley for MicroLive, I'm Wendy Woods.